Welcome back to the final episode of our 4-part mini-series on the transformative power of TED and the 3 vital questions. I'm Susan Dunlop, and I'm so happy to have the opportunity to chat again with Sheri Lawrence. In this episode, we will reflect on key insights and also look at what could possibly go wrong with bringing TED and 3VQ into an organisation, or to put it simply, advice for the sceptics. The idea of scepticism made me wonder what are the common reservations and concerns about implementing such a cultural change in organisational settings. So whether you're a leader contemplating TED for the first time or someone looking to deepen your understanding of how TED can evolve within your organisation, this episode is for you. We'll explore practical advice for replacing scepticism with a focus on inspired outcomes, adapting TED to diverse contexts, and what the future holds for learning and development. So let's uncover how TED can continue making a meaningful impact. All we need to do is start. Welcome, Sheri.
Thank you. Happy to be here and kind of sorry that this is our last part.
I know. I could go on forever though, so watch out saying that. So first of all, Sheri, I want to say thank you for committing to this series. You were asked to appear on one episode, and then I saw how much we could speak about, so I put it out there that we would do 4 parts, and you said, yes, let's do that. All week, I've been thinking, what insights have I personally taken away in being in the conversations, editing the full audio, creating the sound bites, and reviewing the transcript for the blog. So let's just say I've been very immersed in TED, your wisdom, and the learnings of how a large multi-site organisation can make TED become part of your cultural change long term. Talking as we have, making you go back down the path from beginning to the full integration of TED as you are today in Studio Movie Grill. Have you had insights stand out to you in your mind over the past few weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times in business, you just kind of trudge forward. And this has given me an opportunity to really look back and see where we started, see all the things that we've learned. And I think this has been good for me from a standpoint of, I feel like we're putting something out there that really is going to help other companies find some solutions in maybe some of the struggles that they have. So it's been an absolute joy to kind of walk back through this. And I think it's also helped as we move forward to tweak a few things that we were looking at.
Yeah, there were so many insights that came up through each of the episodes. The sound bites were really hard to choose from to get it down to less than 15 minutes of our hour or so conversations that we've had. But to me, there was some really pertinent messages. Some of them I think people may go, oh, I don't know if I really want to know that, like the necessity of continuous practice, leadership buy-in, organisational commitment. There's quite a few elements that if people are not used to making this type of change may make them pull back from it too. Do you think?
I think so. I do think that there's a lot of organizations that were like us when we started, that every year they thought of, okay, what can we bring to the company this year to make us better? And, you spend the time and you pull the people together and you go through it. And 3 months later, if you take a look at it and realize that maybe only 5% of it is still in place, that's kind of a habit of a lot of companies, because it's easy to go through a one-time learning. It's hard to build it into your culture or, even personally to make it a habit. And so I think so. But on the other hand, I think if, as an organization, if they look at long-term and decide, what do we really want our company to look like long-term and be for our employees, then that's where the commitment comes in.
And almost thinking in terms of those 2 FISBs we've spoken about that are part of the TED model, that, you can go in that cycle of, oh, there's a problem, let's fix it, I need to find a solution. That's what you're talking about, is what a lot of companies do. And those three insights that I just mentioned probably fit into that space of, the necessity of continuous practice. How are we going to do that? We won't be able to do that. So people will try and skim their way around it rather than immerse themselves as you have. But you committed to a bigger outcome in the beginning, and that's where you've headed to.
Yeah, and I do have to say, it was a little easier with knowing what we were committed to. And what I mean by that is, the handful of us that had read the book and really dug in and realized what this could be, it was somewhat easier to make a commitment to bring something into our culture that we knew that would not only help our employees be more productive, help our company be more productive, but at the same time, help our employees when they're not working. And that's kind of where the rubber met the road, because we talked about that we were a learning organization and that we wanted to truly help our employees at work and outside of work. So it met that commitment that we had made internally.
And learning, not just in terms of the technical skills, it's that impact beyond the workplace that this is going to have. It is that personal or deep personal growth that you're offering your people, not just professional growth.
It absolutely is. And, as a company, we, years ago, we prided ourselves on being really good at training our employees in their positions. And they were good. But when we started helping our employees learn how to be more productive, learn how to be better people, if you will, they were great people, but to balance some of these things that many of us don't get taught, this drama and all of this, we realized that that's really how you show your employees that you care about them.
Yeah. And as you said in all the other chats, there's so many stories that you could draw on to show that. And I think I've seen that as well in my own experience. I've got stories of those moments when you just know you could have communicated differently, or you could have guided a conversation towards an outcome versus getting trapped up in, say, that fight, flight, freeze that's there for a purpose, but not necessarily healthy to have in a workplace when you're trying to work towards something that's big and good for your stakeholders.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, honestly, I had one of those moments today where I sent an email to somebody and I didn't quite catch myself before I hit send, but I caught myself as soon as I did. It wasn't bad, but my concern was, I don't know how the other person is going to take this. If they take it the wrong way, that's a mistake on my part as a leader. And so I picked up the phone and called them. That would have easily, 10 years ago, turned into a big mess.
I must say, emails did turn people into a big mess. I think a lot of organisations have not gone so well because of the mighty email over a face-to-face conversation. We've lost that skill that we did have before bringing what we know as this common language of TED to workplaces.
Absolutely. Yeah. Email is dangerous sometimes.
Oh, yeah, yeah. The other insights that I've come across, which I would say are in that real space of the outcome focus. And those first three that I did mention, they are also outcomes focused, like the leadership buy-in and that organisational commitment is, we've talked about the impact beyond the workplace, personal and professional growth, the common language. One really big word that stood out to me was alignment. And you've said that in, I think, each of the episodes, that alignment on the desired outcome of the common goal of the company is such a big piece in this.
It really is. It kind of goes back to when we were talking a couple of sessions ago about if you're going from Dallas to LA, are you all taking the same road or are you going different ways? Alignment is a key. And For us, we thought the communication was the key. And communication is important. There's no two ways about it. But if you're not aligned, you can communicate all day long. And it still doesn't get you where you are. But if you're all aligned on that desired outcome, and I'm going to say it again, the 5-step action plan is huge to do that. If you're all aligned on where you're going, then it makes it so much easier to discuss things like budget. Everybody, every leader wants a budget, wants a bucket of money to do the things that they want to do. But sometimes if you add up the bucket of money that every leader wants, it's more than the budget. So that doesn't work, right? So if everybody's aligned, then you can have those conversations about, hey, I want to roll out this new software program. Well, does it align with where we're going? Well, maybe. Well, then automatically you can bring the conversation back to, does it align with where we're going? Does it align with what we say we want to accomplish? And it really makes a difference in where you're putting your time. And time is money.
Yeah, that's so important. Communication is only really helpful that it's then coming back to the alignment piece. Another gem of yours. Thank you. The other insights that stood out to me were the measuring of the cost of drama. That was huge. That was a really big piece last week. Is there any other ones that you feel that we should check in with before we move into the next part about diverse context?
You know, that's an interesting question. I really do think the cost of drama is huge, and I think it's a primary reason to bring the power of TED in. Through these conversations, we've talked about the problem orientation versus the solution and that. But there is one piece that's missing, and that's measuring the cost of productivity after you bring in the power of TED. Because if you measure the drama and then you bring power of TED in, you're going to be able to see a decrease in the drama. Therefore, each individual organization can put a dollar figure on that. And so one of the things that I think is a great tool is just a simple check-in with the leader. How much drama do you think is happening in your department? A lot of leaders say none, but then I always tell them, well, then go ask your team members, go ask your employees. And that's when they really find out where the drama is. If you can take a snapshot of that and bring power of TED in, then you can start looking at the decline in drama, which means productivity is going up, employee happiness is going up. And so you can really build a case for moving it through the organization.
I've heard examples of the open door to the office and that people are noticing that there's not so many dramas being brought in and cycling through that doorway. And I know my bookkeeper used to come in a couple of days a week into my office and she could see across to my office door. And she said it was just like this constant flow. We'd go, just almost like I had one of those rotating doors at some stage. And I would be conscious that I was trying to work on something and I would listen to what was happening. But I was trying to always be in the space of thinking, see it as it is, not worse than it is. And that was the only thing that saved me because I hadn't done TED yet. But it was the only way I could pull myself going, so what is this person saying that I need to do anything about right now? That thankfully saved me. But yeah, the amount of time that I lost by even listening to that rather than saying, hey, how about we all get together and have a really good chat about what we are all focusing on right now. And I think I would have probably allayed some of that time wasting that I think it really was for me and for them, because they went back and told someone that they said to me this, and then they were going to say, oh, well, I'm going to go and tell her this. And I'm like, it's a bit crazy.
Yeah, that. And the other thing that I noticed big time here is that those visits started slowing down as well, because we were teaching our team members how to handle these situations between each other.
Yes.
They didn't have to run to mother or father, right? and say, well, this person's doing this and this person's doing this. We created this culture with the power of TED to be able to have these conversations. And so the visits to the boss's office minimized for several different reasons.
Yeah, and you can imagine if I'd stepped into the coach role or the challenger role or focused on the bigger picture, I could have helped that person rather than enabled her to keep on doing that over and over and over. And like there'd be one person would do it all day. And so my bookkeeper said, you keep letting her do it. I said, oh no, I just don't know what to do. I don't know how to stop it. It sort of beat me down into this corner going, I'm going to keep rescuing her until I can't rescue anymore.
Yeah. Or avoid them, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
There's I'm busy. I'm sorry. Come back later.
Oh. And my dear old dad, he was always worked in admin, and he came and worked in my office for probably the 10 years of the time we had that company. And he hated when I closed my door. He said, you've got to let them in. No, I don't.
Yeah, that's always a tough one.
Oh, yes. You're used to having to be the problem solver, be that person.
Yes.
And I think, nah.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, so yes, I've definitely learnt over the years, from mistakes is the way to go. So just before we finish there, the other part was that embracing the ripple effect. Like that is so powerful, is a big insight that has come out across every part of our conversations. It's been beautiful to consider that.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. We talk about being kind, paying it forward, all of those things. I remember there was a thing a few years ago here where it was like, pay for the person's coffee behind you. Just be kind. And I kind of equate this to that because, not only are we helping somebody understand this concept, but it's an eye-opener if you are somebody that is in this situation. We have team members that just have it tough at home, that they're dealing with a lot of different things at home. You talk about power of TED to them and they think, well, I can apply it at work, but home is different. And then when they see that, oh, wait a minute, this is a way of being. This isn't just something to do for work or something. It's pretty amazing. So being able to pass this on and see this ripple through your organization or whatever group, it's pretty amazing.
That's a perfect segue into our next section, but also just that, yes, what you said, it's not just a workplace tool, framework, it is about being. And I can see how people I've spoken with, say in coaching or whatnot, say, you might want to explore this. Like, oh, what's that going to do for me? My husband's just a pain. He's this and he's that. I think just read the book and come back and let's have a chat and just see, I can see, so they could just see through different perspective of what they've been experiencing for so long. And they did start to make a change in themselves and how they were responding, which was beautiful to watch.
Absolutely.
So in terms of the diverse contexts, in thinking of that, which talk about what you do in your workplace in that regard, I came across it when I was working with the team in Hong Kong. It's an international school, so all the teachers come in from all around the world for 2 or 3 year contracts. And there's obviously a lot of the nationals were there as well. So we had a team of 50, from the janitor to the principal, teachers, all sorts of people, therapy people, all sorts of stuff. It was a special school. And I did pick up in the feedback forms as I went through the process, each of the modules we do. So give me the feedback from this session. And you have to take the cultural norms and expectations into account. And I asked more about that. And it was about a person living in a multi-generational household may be expected to play the roles that they do. And those roles, unfortunately, can trap them in the dreaded drama triangle. And then that affects how they see they might need to show up at work. And there are cultures with strong traditions who might resist the frameworks like this, perceived as foreign or disruptive to establishing their norms. Have you come across that in any way, or have you dealt with it with sensitivity if that type of thing has arisen at work?
Um, so we have to some degree, and we're pretty culturally diverse, especially in our locations. And we work with our employees with the cultural pieces that's important to them for work. And I think you bring up a great point about some cultures and the roles that people play within those cultures. And it's very important to them because it is part of who they are and who their culture is. What I've seen is that once they start applying it at work, it becomes a habit, and they begin to be able to see how they can use it in their personal life to not be stuck in the drama triangle. If a culture says that a female or a male does these things, with the power of TED, we always have a choice, right? So if that culture is very important to us, then we have a choice, and that choice is to follow the culture. So therefore, if we can stay over in the empowerment dynamic, we're not feeling victimized by that. We are making a choice, and a lot of that emotion and that victim feeling goes away.
Yes. Again, it keeps you over in the Frisbee, that is that drama, problem-focused one, and that fuels your conversation in a different way. But if you're staying over in TED, you're working towards what you said you wanted to work towards. You're respectful in your conversations with people. People respect each other. So that disrespect or that challenging, that's more persecution than challenging, just drops away a little bit more, doesn't it?
Yeah. If I had to say what the power of TED does in a nutshell for anybody that applies it, no matter what situation they're in or who they are, is that it gives us the understanding to the power of choosing.
Mm.
And we may be in a situation that we don't enjoy being in, but we can choose how we handle it. And that alone helps us be much happier and much more productive person.
It's a section that interests me, and I know I need to work towards as a trainer, to be conscious of the resistance to change and cultural sensitivity and the use of inclusive language. And I'll probably customize my training to meet that. But this is where we sort of say it's not just about, say, reading a book and I know what I'm going to do. There is this beautiful depth to this work of TED. And I remember in one of the community of practice, someone shared that they spoke to one of the coaches and said, I decided I'm just going to let it all just be. I'm not going to worry about it anymore. The coach asked her a question, and she said she realised that she had dropped to the lowest level of feeling like a victim than she ever had. And that blew my mind. I was like, oh, am I doing that? Am I saying that too? So when people say, oh, just let it go in a workplace, that's also not what we're talking about here. It's not saying put up with anything.
Yeah, I think so. I tell our team members all the time, if this isn't what you want to do, if this isn't the path you want to go down, it's okay to move on, to go find your happiness. If this is where you want to be for now, then you need to step into the power dynamic, because from there, you will see things differently. And sometimes when I tell people about this, they just think I'm crazy, because it sounds easy when you explain it to somebody, but it's like you said, there's such a depth of this. I mean, it's taken me over 10 years to be able to understand it the way I do now. But you work at it, you practice it, you understand it a little bit better. But there's nothing worse than living over there in the drama triangle, feeling like you're a victim to the situation around you. Or I guess I'll just stay in this crazy job because what else do I have to do? Nobody's, you start telling yourself such awful things that are not true about yourself. And you give up your power to choose.
Very important point. And I think that's the beauty of this work, is when we're talking about the depth of it, it's the opening up of a whole team taking their roles as tags on their shirts. They would drop them on the table outside the door, and they would all walk in and sit around the table as equals. And they're showing up knowing that they can trust that that's actually a safe environment to talk about that. If it's going to work towards the outcome, that it's a stronger team by being able to speak your truth in a respectful way. That's the depth of this work.
Yeah. Everyone is valued and everyone has something to say. And too many times as leaders, we get so busy, caught up in all the things that we're supposed to be doing or that we put on ourselves, that we stop seeing our employees, our team members, as creators, as somebody that has great input on what they do every day. And so I love what you said. When you can walk into a room and leave the titles behind and everyone feels like they're equal in that moment, that's when you can really have great conversations and really move forward, whether it be a personal group or a business group. And the other thing is that it's the more people that you have go through this, the more champions, the more people you have leading it, right? The great thing is it's not one person having to chase everybody down and keep it alive. As people go through this and see the value in it, then they want it for the people that work in their team. And then it starts growing on its own.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So generally, in terms of the trends in learning and development, is there something that you've seen that is evolving out there that we need to be conscious of?
Well, I think everybody knows about AI, of course. I mean, it's like on the top of probably every learning and development leader. Some leaders have gotten further than others. With anything, there's pros and cons, and there's always, the concerns of security and things like that. So, of course, AI is a huge piece, ChatGPT, all of that can make learning and development much easier. But another one that we're really seeing gain some ground is understanding these generational differences in the workplace and helping different generations realize that just because a generation is younger than you or older than you doesn't mean that they don't have something that should be heard. And so taking that and using AI survey-based platforms to really gather some of that information that used to take a lot longer to get. You want to get to frontline employees and ask them, hey, does this process need to be improved? And if so, what would you suggest? Because they're the ones that's doing the job day in and day out. Now we can reach them so much quicker, gather information so much faster. And our younger generation that's in our businesses, they grew up on the internet. They grew up using their phones. So they're very quick to use their phone to communicate with us.
Yeah.
So, a lot of it is using technology to help us get to and communicate with our team members much quicker.
Okay. Some of the tech that's coming through and use of AI, I've seen other trainers have programs where they're issuing learning to leaders. The leader will be receiving, these are 3 questions you can ask your people today, just to help them hone their own skills at being able to communicate more effectively. Have you looked at anything like that within your organisation?
We actually do something a little similar on our LMS. All of our employees have access to our LMS, and it's certainly where they go to do all the training and learning, but we also have a social piece to that. And so we do fun things on it. We do, hey, what about this for your team members? We send them weekly suggestions on things to do to motivate their team. So any way we can help keep everybody, here's this word again, aligned, is really important.
Okay. We're going to touch on the skeptics now, okay? It's actually a very positive topic because I love how we can look at something and see already in what you've shared and what we'll still talk about that these issues are addressed and they're not such a problem after all when you look at them. When we look at skepticism and resistance to TED, we've covered the resistance from a manager and from an executive. We've also looked at the common fears that executives may have around ROI, disruption to workflow, sustainability of the learning. We addressed all of that pretty much in the last episode 3. So I'm not going to make us go over it again. But what I did find on the web, I went and had a search myself to see what else I could find because I didn't want to just be making this up. So 3 that I thought we could touch on here would be the concern over external versus internal guidance. Now, some skeptics may question the value of external facilitators versus internal development programs. They may prefer internal guidance for reasons such as organisational culture, fit, and cost. And with this episode, I'm going to show some of the references that I picked this information out of. And in this case, it was the Harvard Business Review's article, The Advantages of External Facilitators. But I thought, let's just go into the Centre for the Empowerment Dynamic. I know there are 4 case studies of the centre that are easily available. Yours was one of them. And that was about bringing in an external consultant, or David Emerald and Donna Zajon, to be exact.
Yeah.
So what do you feel? You've turned into internal, but you are part of the community and you obviously first met external in the first place. So how do you feel the balance or the flow of that worked for you?
Well, the reason we went internal was because we decided that we wanted this to be part of our culture. So therefore, it was going to take a lot more internal work, and the cost to have an external facilitator do that it just didn't fit. But at first, I always look at what are we experts in? Of our leadership team and the team that is involved in teaching and helping our people learn, what are we experts in? And if there's something that we want that we're not the experts in, then I challenge us to determine if it's more cost effective to have someone, at least at first, come in. Working with David and Donna, there was no way that we could have internally started TED the way they did for us. I mean, their expertise, of course, their longevity with the work. I mean, we just talked a few minutes ago about the more you work with this, the deeper it goes. And there's a lot of value in bringing someone in that truly has that expertise. For some companies, having an external facilitator that brings it in, helps get it integrated into the company and carries it through is the right way. And for other companies, especially, we have several locations. We're in the hospitality industry. Turnover is fairly high in our locations. And it made more sense for us to be able to certify a few people and bring it in internally. I really think that's it.
Yeah. With David and Donna, was it you met them at Stagen?
I was introduced to TED through the learning at the Stagen Leadership Academy, but I met David and Donna at a conference several months later. And that's where we met and started talking about TED and how to integrate it and bring it internally to the culture. And that's kind of when that started.
Ah, okay. All right. The other case studies, I know Stagen was where a few of them met, but the Cleveland Clinic, I often reference that because it speaks to me in my healthcare background. But I know in that the leaders have become internal facilitators. They've put over 1,000 leaders or emerging leaders through this work. It's incredible to think that that size organisation has worked out a way to bring this. And they said that they constantly get asked to bring TED into the annual training plan. So all the people actually asking for it, which is just incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think, that's where you see a company or organization that has worked with an external facilitator coach and have realized that it's a perfect fit for their company and they want to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it makes sense to consider getting internal certification to do that.
I'd love to support more people doing that. I mean, I love doing what I do as external, but to honour the process and honour that sustainability, you have to let it spread throughout the organisation with that commitment from the champions that are in there.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. So general scepticism about new methods. So have you come across anything like that in how you're operating there? Anyone say, this is a bright idea, here she goes again, who's going to fill the gap between something that failed before and she's going to come up with a nice, bright, shiny object. And I know personally, I had a coach in Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. It was the work of Vern Harnish in Canada. And that led me to, read up on Patrick Lencioni's work. And I could see what I was doing by jumping around to find ways to make us better, which was my intention, was to make us a company that was the best we could be. It was actually reducing the trust. It was creating internal conflict. Everyone was coming up with their own quiet, unwritten ground rules. So accountability got disregarded, commitment dropped away, and we'd lose people. And, the G up about the results that we first got all excited about after the strategic planning process at the annual retreat was like a distant memory in the end.
Yes, we actually did a little bit of Vern's work here years ago. Our CEO at the time loved his stuff. And when we bounced around, we was like, oh, well, let's do this, let's do that, well, let's do this, well, let's do that. And it was kind of like you felt like you had to have something new to put in front of people. And what we finally realized in kind of starting to see these people run away from it, that, well, wait a minute, basically what we're doing is we're just shotgunning this, right? We're kind of, I don't know if they say it in other places, but here in Texas, we say we're just throwing Jell-O at the wall to see what sticks.
Ah.
And you say, oh, well, everybody liked this out of this, so we're going to use that. And so all of a sudden, we had all these processes that came from 10 different programs. They didn't line up with each other. And so that's when we realized, well, wait a minute. Maybe we need to take something deeper and really have an impact than to just do a whole bunch of stuff. So now, when I talk to other L&D leaders or business leaders and they ask me about it, the first thing I ask them is, do you want to go deep in the learning and drive it all through the company? Or do you want to just try a whole bunch of stuff every year to make it look like you're trying to learn things? And because that's the way our people felt. They felt like we were just throwing stuff out there to just say that we're doing something.
Gosh, I've seen that so many times in other organisations too. It's a common thing that we do. Other people who work in change management have shared with me that they finally get the contract with someone because that bucket of money has finally been released.
Yeah.
And they've got to spend it all at once in that financial year, and there's 3 months left by the time the money comes up. So they're like,
Yeah.
sure, we can offer you this. And she said, it's like adrenaline fueled. Quick, let's find the solution to this problem. Yeah, it is like that crazy roller coaster that we talk about that takes you longer to get where you want to go in the end anyway. So
Yeah, it really is.
there was one article, again, I'll share it. It was why new leadership models are essential, and that was from Forbes. So I'll pop that into the description as well, based around that one. The last one we've got to talk about is we did talk about the sustained learning, okay, but we didn't really touch on behaviour change. So there's often scepticism about whether the principles learned through any leadership program might lead to lasting behavioural changes and the ongoing engagement. And I found Gallup's article was the real future of employee engagement. Let's talk about long-term behaviour change. So we've talked about cost of drama. We've talked about the increased productivity. Is there a way that we can measure long-term behaviour change?
I absolutely think so. One of the things that you can measure is a reduction in HR issues. If you think about when the issues that the HR department will come across their desk from a standpoint of maybe a manager not communicating properly to their employees, or an employee feeling like that they were disregarded on something, those typically will diminish because managers have learned now how to see their employees in a different light and how to communicate with them better, right? So there's that. Turnover should reduce depending on the industry you're in and things like that. But a lot of the data now says that people stay with companies if they're offered additional learning and have opportunities to grow. Of course, we always say, oh, money's not important. Money's important. We have to pay our bills.
Yeah.
But people really do appreciate when companies help them learn and grow. So that's a biggie. You can measure it that way. There's a lot of different things that you can measure in and around those areas. I really do think HR is a big one because the cost of HR issues or the projected cost can be enormous. And I think that's kind of a red flag as well for people that are looking at, would this be something good for our organization? How many HR issues are you dealing with?
Yeah. And I can imagine through quality management systems as well, when we have that feedback loop from the customer satisfaction or issues that arise, a lot of it would be referenced back to this about, like in my case, it was a nurse going into a hospital. If they had this, that they would actually have shown up to the shift and said, okay, so I'm here, what are we looking to get through this morning for this next 8 hours, and to have actually stepped in there rather than just show up and going, okay, I'm the agency, I can see they don't want me here, because that's how it used to feel to a lot of agency staff, and they'd have to just rattle their way around the edges to try and actually make it through. And then errors can happen, and that can actually impact the outcomes for the patients in the end of the day, or even the patient's family's experience. That real worry of having to watch what's going on because you're not quite sure that mum or dad are really in safe hands after all, when communication and that alignment isn't there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, okay. So the other additional resources I'll mention is, we've talked about it probably 100 times through this, is the book, The Power of TED by David Emerald. His other book is also The 3 Vital Questions Transforming Workplace Drama. So both of those books are really good resources that just set out the frameworks. They address common concerns as the way the stories are shared. They are very relatable. And then there's the case studies and all sorts of advice that you can gain through the centre itself. So they give a really well-rounded perspective to address skeptical concerns. And they helped me shape my discussion with Sheri as well as I was approaching this series. So it's time to wrap up. How did that happen?
No.
No. I I've enjoyed these conversations so much and how they've opened my mind and re-inspired me at the possibilities for organisations that I can bring this work to as the external consultant. I've so many notes and you've given me brilliant lessons and aha moments, and I've got blog material to cover me for the next 3 months, I think, from what we've covered. So thank you, lovely Sheri, for so many insights and stories. And even as we started this conversation today, you gave me something on my action plan to pull together a panel of business leaders to see whether we can share some obstacles or discuss how they might bring TED into their organisation. So you are a light, and thank you so much for filling up my screen with so much wonderful ideas, and I've got much more to work with.
Well, thank you, Susan. I have really enjoyed it, and I just love your passion about getting this out there because we both know how much it can help. So thank you for being a champion and a light on your side of the world.
We get to light up the world together.
That's right.
So listeners, in summary, TED and 3VQ provide a practical, vision-driven approach to closing the gap between current performance and desired outcomes. By focusing on incremental progress, outcome-oriented planning, and maintaining a clear vision, these frameworks help businesses achieve their goals with less stress and greater efficiency. If you're interested in exploring how TED and 3VQ can benefit your organisation and maybe want to come on that panel arrangement with me, feel free to reach out for more information on implementing these powerful tools. I am one of the licensed facilitators, like Sheri, delivering TED and 3VQ. I am in Australia and work face-to-face or virtually, anywhere that makes good sense for time zone and business hours. There are over 100 certified 3VQ trainers worldwide now available to support you, and I can put you in contact with those, or please check out the Centre for the Empowerment Dynamics website. Note, if you'd like to purchase any of the online courses, message me, as we trainers can secure you great rates or put you into the right program to begin with. If you're interested in reading or listening to the founders' books, both David Emerald and Donna Zajon's award-winning books are available on Amazon. Another good last tip is, if you want to buy those books in bulk for your people and you're not in the USA, Amazon allowed us free shipping to, say, the 50 staff in Hong Kong, and that worked out a much more cost-effective way than me trying to ship them direct from the centre. So as we close out, was there one key takeaway or insight you jotted down from this conversation or any of the last three? If you have any questions from today's episode or any part of the series, please send them to me via email to connect@susandunlop.com.au. You can also message me on LinkedIn or connect with me there. And on Instagram, I'm found simply as Lead, Believe, Create. Thank you once again for being here with us. Trust that you are blessed, even when you forget that you are blessed. Take care of yourself. I really look forward to being back soon, and bye for now.